Rob.
About it.
Hey, Liz.
Hey
We're
there,
here.
how are you? Are you there?
Yep,
there.
we're here.
And we can hear you. And
Okay,
We're here. We were just muted.
Coolio.
okay. I actually have 7 o'clock. Do you? Is there anybody out there?
Yep.
Hmm?
Everybody on Zoom is in the meeting.
Okay, good.
We're good to go.
All right. So, did you guys have a chance to look over the minutes?
Yes, and I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, I'll second.
I'll just mention one thing. There's one place where you misspelled Chanticleer. It's like Chantel here, and you did the same thing in your
In the new report.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, but all right. So all in favor of approving the minutes with that tiny change, say aye.
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 I
Do we have anyone out there for public comment? Is there anyone out there?
Nope, just Liz and GNAT right now.
Okay, then we'll go right on to VTrans.
Okay. We could have zoomed in, I think, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had not so many people showing up in person these days.
Okay. Can everybody on the line hear me from here?
just fine.
Okay, perfect. So this is the regional concerns meeting for Bridge 58A on Vermont Route 30. I'm Laura Stone. I'm the VTrans scoping engineer. We also have Bob Kleinfelter here. He's the VTrans project manager. So the purpose of the meeting, we want to provide an understanding of our approach to the project, talk about the project constraints, the alternatives that we considered in our scoping report, ultimately what we selected to do here for this site, and provide an opportunity to ask questions and voice concerns. So here's the location map. Bridge is located on Vermont 30 right here. I believe that's Paul's Way. It's just south of Paul's Way. There's the aerial view. So the culvert is located right here south of Paul's Way. So I'm going to talk briefly about our project development process, give a project overview, talk about the existing conditions, the alternatives we considered, again, our selected alternative, and then the big thing we want to talk about is maintenance of traffic. Schedule, so when you can expect to see this in construction, summary, and I have questions at the bottom, but you can interrupt me at any time. So this is the VTrans project development process. This slide is to show we're at a really early stage of the project development process. Project's been funded, and actually we're past this project defined phase. We have started conceptual plans, so we are into design. But really towards this project defined milestone, we like to have this public participation. We can really build consensus towards our selected alternative, hear the concerns from the public. So right now we're at the conceptual design stage where we're quantifying the areas of impact. We're going to start the environmental permitting process pretty soon. Develop plans, estimates, and specifications, and start the right-of-way process if necessary. After design, contract will be awarded, and then we'll move into construction. So we are early on in the project development process. Here's a picture looking southeast over the culvert. The roadway is classified as a rural minor arterial. The existing structure is a 56-foot long, 6-foot span, asphalt coated, corrugated, galvanized metal plate pipe. That's just a fancy way of saying it's a metal pipe. And there is 4 feet of cover over the existing culvert, so not a lot of cover here. It is owned by the state of Vermont, so this is going to be 80% federally funded, 20% state funded, so no town funds needed. And the existing culvert was constructed in 1949.
Could you just go back for a second, if you don't mind? Could you just point out to me exactly where that culvert is? Is it where the yellow is, like where it's going across?
Yeah,
Right.
it's very close to this
To the
location
corner?
right here.
Very close to the corner. Okay.
There's no inlet over here to the culvert. Well, there
I
is an
see.
inlet, but there's it's a drainage grate.
Yep.
And I'll show you in the plans kind of what that system connects to and what that looks like.
Okay,
And-
perfect.
And just based upon where it is, it's really, doesn't look like it's for like storm drain type thing, or,
It actually used to, it was originally a cattle pass, we determined.
oh,
And
okay,
then the property owner, I think it was around 2002, got a permit from the state to put the structure on the inlet and then fill in, level off the lawn area there for a vegetable stand, I believe that.
oh, okay,
That's what the permit said, but I think originally the purpose of it
For
was
cattle.
for cattle pass.
okay.
Oh, okay.
We've had a few of those.
Yeah,
Here's a picture looking northwest. There are aerial utilities present on the east, on the inlet side of Vermont Route 30. So the site conditions, the culvert's in poor condition. There's holes scattered throughout the pipe measuring 1 to 2 feet in diameter, and there is material loss happening from around that culvert. The existing shoulder widths along Vermont Route 30 are substandard. That's throughout the entire corridor. State standards call for a 5-foot shoulder, and we have a 3-foot shoulder here. And Vermont Route 30 has a substandard vertical crest curve through the project area.
What's that mean?
So a crest curve is when there's a hump
Right.
in the road when
Yep.
you're driving along. So if you have a substandard hump, sometimes that can have you have substandard sight, like headlight sight distances or stopping sight distances.
Mhm.
It can also give you kind of that roller coaster feeling in your tummy.
Okay,
So culvert is rated a 4. It's in poor condition. So that's the DI there. As you can see, that opening for the DI is a lot smaller than this 6-foot pipe here. Here's the outlet end. There's the inlet. There's that grate that we were talking about. You can see these holes are pretty significant. And you can see the materials just kind of falling out from along the outside. And there are holes located pretty consistently at these joints here. So resources, we are within the northern long-eared bat habitat range. That really just means that any tree clearing, which I don't anticipate a lot of tree clearing happening here, but any tree clearing that happens has to happen within a certain time frame. It can't happen during the summer. And there are potentially National Register eligible farmstead. So a potentially historic property. Our historic folks did say that further research, including better images of the farmhouse, is necessary to make a more definitive determination whether that is historic or not.
And Laura, I'm just gonna pause you just for a second. So, these are the owners actually from that first picture on either
great.
side of the road.
Okay,
So.
awesome.
So can I just ask one question then? So if it was built as a cattle pass to begin with, and then they put this culvert in, and so it's just got that one drain on the one side and the lower side is on the other, is there a lot of actual water going through it? Because it doesn't look with that drain like there would be a lot going through there.
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's kind of why we waited until we've kind of gotten a little bit farther in our project development process before we came to the town to give this presentation. We've done more detailed hydraulic analysis and models of the area just to make sure that this is even needed. And those models did find that there is a drainage culvert needed here, just based on how the water comes and pools up.
yeah, it could eventually, or in a flood event, it could overtop Route 30. So the hydraulic modeling, I think it comes under Falls Way, and then it would actually come over Falls Way towards this culvert, and then eventually over Route 30. So the new structure, the inlet will be much larger, the drop inlet, instead of now it's just a little round grate.
Yeah.
So we'll actually have, I think, a double square grate plus like a curved inlet, so it'll be able to take a lot more water into it than it can now. I mean, I don't know if that's,
I can give you the backstory of what's actually there.
okay, and
That was used to put the cows under the road. At the level of the concrete coming out of the discharge site on Michael's property, of that culvert, there's concrete in the bottom of that all the way through. There's also concrete on the opposite side that goes up to what was the height of the land.
Okay.
There's the runoff or overflow from our springs went down toward where the culvert is, and then they headed north. And that water all flowed north and went up and actually crossed under Route 30 up by Davy Mountain Road.
Okay.
So we poured concrete down to the end of the cattle pass, so the cows didn't walk through the mud, and we had a footbridge at the top. So they got over the little stream, if you will, that came from the overflow from the springs. When Paul's Way was put in and that culvert was put in, it was pitched the wrong direction, and it brought all the water back from the north back onto our property and Michael's property. So, because it used to, when I was a kid, we shoveled that ditch every summer to keep it opened up so that the water would flow north like it's supposed to, but it doesn't now, it flows back the same direction.
Okay, yeah,
But there is a concrete slab in there that's 50 feet wide and 80 feet long that goes all the way to the level of the concrete in the bottom of that cattle pass.
okay. Yeah, no.
So all the water that's there is gonna go through that, because the concrete actually is gonna take it that direction.
You're talking on your side.
That's on my side.
That's under the ground.
Because we filled all of that in because basically it was an eyesore. You know,
Yeah.
because we didn't have cattle there anymore, we weren't keeping it up, and it was growing up the brush and one thing and another, so we filled it in and put in a little bit of drainage to get rid of the water so it would run through the culvert.
Okay. Is there a way for that water to get into that structure that?
Yeah, there's drainage tile and stuff in there
There
to
is,
get it
okay.
into that.
Yeah,
It did.
because I know there's like a 15 or 18 inch pipe coming into it from Paul's Way. But you're saying there's
That's supposed to
also.
go north, that water's supposed to be going north, it doesn't.
Mhm. Yeah, and that wasn't anything that the state did, I think. that-
No, it was,
yeah.
town did that when they
Yeah.
put that road in.
Yeah, when we first started looking at this, it was like, how did this?
But then there's also, if you watch down Paul's Way, there's water that comes down the edge of that and goes by the old dilapidated tool shed and runs down, it comes into, I don't know exactly where, but it comes into, where the culvert goes under Paul's Way. That water comes down to there as well.
So,
You have two sources of water. One is the spring,
Mhm.
which is on Theta's property. That
That's on mine.
feeds, that's on your property. So that feeds Theta's house, my barn, and
The arc.
the ark. So there's a few
My
properties.
house,
your
mobile
house.
home. There used to be a pipe that ran in the barn at my house. There was a pipe at the ark that runs constantly. There's a huge amount of water there. So
Where's
plus we-
that spring?
Plus we ran it.
It's behind, the spring's behind Milk's house. I think.
No, it's right across from Thea's house.
Okay,
If you looked at the culvert on Paul's Way when you first turn, if you look directly to your right, then it's right there.
okay.
So the water can, from the overflow of that spring, because if it doesn't go to the houses or the barn, has to flow over, and that goes into through this culvert.
okay,
And, so that's why,
How many houses are on the spring? 2, 3?
Was the ark, Michael's house, Thea's house,
my barn,
well, his barn, actually both of his barns. My house, the barn and the mobile home.
And they're all still on it, or?
Obviously not using the amount of water that they used to, but, and I'm not sure if Eleanor's using, I think she drilled a well a few years ago, so she's
Sure.
probably not using the water off the spring, but I believe there's still a spigot that runs constantly over there.
so there's pipes. that
There's
run
pipes
under
in the
Route
ground,
30
yeah.
From that spring?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the pipe that goes to the barn and to, well, your house is not, but the barn is on south side of the cattle pass, just down a foot or so.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be something we'll probably want to locate just to make sure,
I can show you what all this stuff is.
Okay, yeah.
so this, when I bought the property, that was when you So it was open, you could walk underneath Route 30.
It was open when you bought it, yeah.
And then, but the spring, since it's always overflowing on Milton's side, that property was always wet. So he, put the pipe in, so it continually comes through there. When he did that, since the water wasn't kind of going in the ground on his side, it all goes through underneath Route 30. So I dug a ditch all the way
Actually, might go to a
through.
different picture.
Hmm?
Maybe a different picture would be better to kind of,
Yeah, so water's coming towards us.
Back up.
So, yeah. Okay, good. So it comes across Route 30. So on the right hand to the left hand side, and I dug a ditch all the way to the left. And you see where my driveway is, all the way like 100 yards now the other way. So,
This way.
yeah.
Here, you
So,
wanna use your, the pointer?
oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's
So-
that little red,
Yeah.
and then it's just this little button here. There you go.
Okay. So the pipe goes underneath Route 30 here. Spring box is here, no? Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the spring. So then the water from the spring overflow goes underneath Route 30. Right here. And
It's that greener part there, right there.
so that's the big elm tree. So it goes underneath. I dug this ditch here because when this was put in, it started flooding my barn. So I dug the ditch and put a pipe underneath this driveway, actually, before this driveway went in, and everything goes into the field right here. And I just don't mow it. And the birds love it, and it just it's like some sandy soil, and it just goes into the ground.
It always drained there anyway.
It always did,
That was
yeah.
the ditch there that drained there.
Who's that?
So, and then this here, so that's the source of water from the spring. When you talk about hydraulics and everything coming down, you can interject because you know this better than I do.
Well, but there's another stream above.
This is the stream right here.
Yeah,
Yep. So the water's coming from here, coming downhill, goes across Paul's Way. There's a pipe right here. This runs consistently. That's not the spring. That's your other source of water. It goes all the way here and underneath Route 30 on the other side of the arc. So this is the natural way that water flows. When Paul's Way went in, right, the spring used to kind of flow this way.
You got two of them there. Because there's still, if you go, can I see, just for a second? We all get to play with the point. So what Mike was talking about up there, there's a stream there that goes out through, that's still there. This other one that went under there, went right out through behind the house and out and all the way up through there. That's where that drained out of the springs, was right there. Boom, right out. through.
no, it goes.
And it went right through behind the schoolhouse. That's what was always referred to as the schoolhouse, is that place there. And it went right through the ditch, our ditch, because our property line used to go to the back side of there. That was the pasture. We used to shovel that ditch all the way every summer and keep it cleaned out so the water went that way.
That was
Went out of
before
there.
Paul's Way was there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about this, towards the end of the scoping process, because we did model all of this. Specifically, this culvert up here is undersized. So it is interesting with all those sources of water, looking at the hydraulic models, where all this water goes. It's pretty wild, because there is some overflow from this culvert that makes its way down here. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so where was I? So existing conditions, this is like a bird's eye view. If you're a bird flying in the air looking down on the road, this brown section here is Vermont Route 30. This is Paul's Way. These red lines here are the state-owned right-of-way. Purple lines are property owner lines. As you can see, the inlet and the outlet of this pipe are outside of the state-owned right-of-way, so we are likely going to be needing some property rights for this project. So the DI is located right there where my red pointer is, and as you can see, it is connected to a network of pipes that run under Paul's Way.
That there now.
So design criteria and considerations, there's an average daily traffic of about 4,000 vehicles per day. A design hourly volume, so that's in your peak hour of traffic, how many vehicles you would expect to see. 480 vehicles per hour. Percent trucks, the percent trucks is pretty high here, it's 13.6%.
Buses. Just-
Logging trucks.
yeah, approximate, like, it's quick to New York
Okay.
on that side of town, so a lot of through truck traffic.
So we looked at, really, we didn't consider the no action alternative just based on the core conditions. So we looked at sort of two options here. One option would be to put a liner in the existing cattle pass and just grout in between the old pipe and the new pipe. It could have a minimum 3-foot inner diameter based on the hydraulics here. It would meet the minimum hydraulic standards. It is a cost-effective option because you're not digging up the road. And it would have minimal impacts to resources and would not interrupt traffic. But we would expect about a 30-year design life out of a pipeliner. And the other issue with a pipeliner is that would remain on our large structures inventory and would have to be part of the BIS is the bridge inspection system. And so our inspectors would have to go out and inspect it more frequently than if we replace it with a new 3-foot diameter culvert. 3-foot diameter culvert, we could construct it longer so it could accommodate the standard roadway width. We would remove the structure from the state's large culvert inventory, and it would have a design life of 75 years. One of the other benefits of the full bridge replacement is that just because there is so much material loss from those holes in the existing culvert, it's a little bit unknown if there's any voids under the roadway there.
Can I ask you about the roadway width?
Yeah,
So the second one can accommodate standard roadway width. Does that mean what's there now?
so what's there now, and I think you missed that because you came in a little late. What's there now are 3-foot shoulders along the entire corridor width. So the standard width here is 5-foot shoulders. So an 11.5 typical section, that's 2 11-foot travel lanes with 3-foot shoulders on either side. So the standard is 5-foot shoulders.
So there's 3 now, you want to move it to 5.
Well, it's 3
Added
now
2
and the
feet.
standard is 5. So because the corridor.
So that's that standard. So that means it would go to 5.
So what we would do is we would construct the culvert longer. So if there ever was a widening project that came through the entire corridor, it could be widened to 5 feet and that wouldn't have to be replaced.
And the reason I ask is that when the road is plowed, they come through at 40 miles an hour. If it was any closer to my house, the snow would go through the road. The
Gotcha.
house is very close to the road.
Yeah.
So, and I'm very cognizant of the narrowness of roads. I run up Road 30 all the time, and I'd love it if things were wider, but in terms of like that area right there, if it went another 2 feet, like they don't slow down when they're moving snow, and it would go like literally go through the windows.
Yeah. So as part of this project, we are proposing to maintain those 3-foot shoulders.
Okay, they're very important.
Yeah.
For me, because I don't know, I'd have to move the house back.
Yeah.
The length of the culvert that's there stuck out well beyond. I don't know. It stuck beyond the shoulder of the road. And then there was nothing. It dropped off directly to the culvert for probably 2 or more feet on each side as it was.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that relates back directly to the right of way, but it already stuck out on each end quite a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't see that on my side because it's buried up. You should still be able to see that on his side because it still sticks out there.
Yeah, so there's standard slopes from the edge of the shoulder that we have to construct down. So we can't just have it drop off. There has to be a 1-on-2 slope.
Yeah, we'd like to try to avoid putting guardrail in here, so we'd probably flatten the slopes out a little bit just to avoid that, so it can be recoverable from the vehicle, so. You know, it simplifies things if we make the pipe a little bit longer, just from that standpoint, otherwise. If you have it short, we'd have to put a concrete head wall on it, and then probably put guardrail in front of it, because that would be a hazard within the clear zone roadway. So by making the pipe a little bit longer and just, again, we wouldn't change the pavement width. But the slopes would, particularly on your side of the road, would probably flatten out a little bit just so we could grade it and it would be like a grass slope. It wouldn't have to be necessarily stone fill or anything like a steep slope would be. So that's the goal there, is to not have to install guardrail. Short run of guardrail is never ideal. Trying to terminate it, they get hit all the time. It's just, so that, I think that would be the main difference there. With the pipe would be slightly longer, but it's going to be a lot smaller too. So I think, I mean, half the size, or so I don't think it would have a big impact. But those are things when we get a little further into it, like
Now,
we actually show you contours and sort of what it looks like.
Since we now just have the three, the smaller pipe, but how deep is that gonna be?
It has to stay deep.
It's gonna have to go to the bottom, to the level of concrete, the bottom where the water's gonna run under.
Okay.
Yeah, so there will be more fill over it. So we're going from a 6-foot pipe to a 3-foot pipe. So,
It's running right at
The
the
bottom
bottom of
pipe
it.
needs to
Yeah.
stay basically the same place.
okay, so our selected alternative is to replace the existing culvert with a new 3-foot pipe. The minimum hydraulic standard and bankable width conditions will be met. The new pipe we just talked about this, but it can't accommodate an 11.5 roadway typical, but we are proposing to match the existing roadway width. There's only 4 feet of fill above the culvert, so there's really not an excessive amount of earthwork here. This would remove the structure from the state's large culvert inventory and extend the life of the structure an additional 75 years. So there's the proposed typical section, and this is exaggerated in the Y direction here. So this is a round pipe, but there's just the way it was drafted up. So the existing 72-inch pipe, this whole pipe is going to be removed in its entirety and replaced with that 3-foot diameter pipe. So this is showing the proposed layout. This, it's still conceptual in nature, but this is showing, we like to keep the limits in, about 50 feet here on either side of the culvert. So we do like to keep the limits pretty tight to the culvert. We don't want to make this a roadway project. This is showing the length of the culvert as it is now in conceptual design. So the existing culvert ended about here, and we would be lengthening the culvert to approximately here.
And that's not finalized, like these are sort of just, these are conceptual plans, so we
It'll
have.
give you your angle that you're looking for, right?
Yeah, and again, it's sort of just roughed in to give us a conservative idea on the limits, more for the initial environmental process, and then we can sort of shrink it in from there. So we're usually pretty conservative on our first approach, but again, we'll come out and meet with you both when we get a little bit further into this, and then we'll have some updated information to show. And we can measure off, have some dimensions on it, so we can measure off the end of the pipe and show you exactly where it would be.
Yep, and there is compensation, right-of-way compensation involved. A right-of-way negotiator will go out and they appraise any rights that are needed. So you will be compensated. We certainly don't want to take any land
Yeah, there is the large tree there though, that's pretty much right at the
Yeah,
outlet.
the elm tree.
Yeah,
Yeah, unfortunately, that's gonna have to go. It's a-
yeah, I mean. You know, don't wanna make any promises, but I think we could look at. I don't know, we could take a closer look at that. I mean, it looked like it's sort of, I mean, it's sort of wrapped right around the end of the pipe, so.
Yeah,
Maybe we can leave a portion of that pipe in there or something and just bury it, just since we are getting so much smaller. If we were getting larger. And we're putting the same size pipe in, it'd be probably tough to have it that close, but I think since it's getting smaller, you know, I know taking away a large tree like that is not ideal from a privacy standpoint, just it's a nice looking tree.
yeah.
So I'll ask the designer that's working on this to take a closer look and we'll do what we can to try to save it.
And then the telephone pole, are you gonna touch on that?
That'll have to get relocated.
Which direction would it go in?
We haven't, our utility section is working with the utilities currently to figure out a relocation, so we don't know, does that go and services your house?
Yeah, the reason it's there is because it's just perpendicular to the pole across the street.
Yeah,
So it comes straight across and then it
yeah,
goes to my house.
yeah, and the pole across the street will have to get relocated too, just since that's right next to the structure, so excavating for that. And I think there's a spruce tree right near there, that a pretty large one, that one probably will have to go, just since that's gonna be the first.
All of them.
Okay. We like to hear that, but, you know,
They're on my list of things to do.
okay, yeah, well, that's good to know, so,
And actually, that telephone pole on my side, it used to be on the southern side of that driveway.
okay. Yeah,
Actually, there's still a little bit there that you can identify with a lawnmower once in a while.
okay. Yeah, when we come out and meet with you, we'll have a relocation to show you. It's sort of, since we're dealing with a pretty small pipe here, it's not like we need a crane in there or anything. I think the issue is just excavating around it, it's so close to the pipe. So they may be able to shift it just a little bit to the one way or the other, just so we can open cut excavate it. But you know, since if we were putting in like a concrete box over it, it would be in the way of crane. So then it's a little bit more of a problem. You'd have to get the lines out of the way.
Would you be able to put the power under the road?
They don't want
Can't do
to
that?
go underground,
No.
yeah, unless we have to, so it's expensive. But.
It's the federal government though. And they just made that money up.
I think they have less money than we do at this point.
Yeah. Those questions.
Did you guys have any more questions about the structure piece? Or should I just hop into maintenance of traffic? Okay. So maintenance of traffic options considered, we looked at an off-site detour. This option closes the bridge and reroutes traffic onto an official state sign detour. Phased construction involves maintenance of traffic on the existing culvert while building one lane at a time of the proposed structure. It allows the road to stay open during construction with minimal impacts. And then we looked at a temporary bridge, which temporary bridge is, a temporary bridge is constructed on either side of the road, and we would switch traffic over to that temporary bridge during construction. And it would have limits outside of the right of way on either side and require a more robust utility relocation. So what we selected here is a road closure. The detour would be chosen and signed by the state. We think that we can accomplish this with a 2-day closure duration. Is that where 2 days?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it'd be a weekend, you know, so. A lot of times what we'll do is they probably wouldn't need to do a lot of night work for this one, so sometimes we'll do like 60 hours, so it's like 6 p.m. Friday or 7 p.m. Friday, 6 a.m. Monday, something like that, but we do it over a weekend likely unless for some reason there was higher traffic volumes on the weekend than during the week. Occasionally that does come up, but I think 2 to 3 days would be plenty of what we have here. Yeah, I mean, it's possible to phase it. It's just, I think that old pipe is in such bad shape that we were concerned, I think, with once you start digging it, that it's probably going to fall apart. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's definitely some risk there. And the detour wasn't well, the local detour, I know we talked about that. I had the culvert in Rupert just up the road on the town line. And, we were planning to put these out, I think, together. And we talked about it, I think, potentially using that local road, as a detour. I think, right, or.
Yeah.
The West Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what?
West Road.
Yeah, so
The only one.
there's, well, we don't need to talk about the 70-mile detour because we're not gonna sign that.
Yeah.
So actually, well, so there is an opportunity here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, to place PCMS boards kind of farther out and to have a lot of outreach to the trucking community to make sure that trucks aren't trying to use the local bypass. Of course, some are always gonna still try to use it, but we would like to divert the trucks.
Yeah,
around.
yeah, I just had a culvert we did up in Coventry on a state highway, and the car detour, even on state routes, was pretty short, but trucks couldn't make the turn up in Newport, so we will hire a public outreach consultant, and we can do a lot of public outreach to trucking companies and everything. Larger vehicles pretty easily compared to what it takes to sign a 70-mile detour.
Yeah.
It's by the time they uncover all the signs, they pretty much get to turn around and start covering them back up. It's in so many signs. So I think we would do that. We would definitely do that here. We'd have a public outreach consultant that would do, develop a stakeholder list ahead of time and then do a lot of outreach just to try to get the trucking companies to stay on state routes. So we've done that quite a bit, especially in a case like this where we're potentially using a town road.
Most of them probably have alternatives, don't they?
What's that?
Truckers,
Truckers.
trucking.
Always.
I mean, it's all depends on
all
what they're
fine.
doing and where they're going.
Yeah, and another thing I think
At least it's a short.
with the weekend
window.
also, I mean, generally, I think trucking volumes are in general less on the weekends, probably varies.
And depending on what it is, I mean, some of the stuff doesn't have to go every day, like
Yeah.
loggers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They might wait a day or two.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And just move it at a different time where some of your stuff's gotta move, but
Sure.
not all of it.
And I'm assuming we'll do this at a time when the school isn't in session, so
Right.
that you don't have that traffic, which will cut down.
yeah, we definitely would shoot for when school's out.
Yeah, and there's definitely some collaboration that will happen with the town to determine if a weekend closure is better or weekday closure is better. Determine if there's any special events that happen in the town, so you guys will have some insight on that.
Okay.
So I took this slide
Sure.
from the Rupert presentation. So my dot is showing where Rupert Bridge 62 is, but
Yeah.
it's the same exact detour. Our culvert's located more down this way. So this is the shortest route around. It's Vermont 30 to Church Street, Dorset West Road, Rupert Mountain Road, back to Vermont Route 30. It does have an end-to-end distance, so that's if you're going from one end all the way around to the other end of 4.3 miles. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this route.
That's right, because I run
Mhm.
it exactly 4-3.
Yes. Oh, that's great. So construction start spring, summer of 2026 is when we have this in our budget right now. That could move out due to permitting, utility relocations, the right-of-way process. And we don't expect that to deviate much more than a year. But this is what we're trying to shoot for at this point. There's a total cost estimate of $480,000. Project summary, full bridge replacement with a new 3-foot diameter pipe while maintaining traffic on an off-site detour for 2 days. Again, the official state detour route is way too long, but there is that local bypass route that we're also signing for Rupert Bridge 61. So the current culvert is rated in poor condition, replacements needed, and by replacing the culvert with a 3-foot pipe, it can be removed from the bridge inspection system. I don't know if you've gotten into the type of pipe yet. It might be a metal pipe, it could be a polyethylene pipe. would meet the minimum state standard for any future widening of the roadway and would have a design life of 75 years. So that's the end. We do have this website up here that's been sent to, it's been sent to the town.
I think that link doesn't work anymore.
Oh,
I just checked it.
okay,
If that was the,
okay, it is cap sensitive.
because it was one that I cut and copied, gave to you, and then I went to go to it today, and then the link didn't work again.
Okay, we can,
I checked it earlier, but yeah, we can,
Did you look at the next culvert above his house? There's like a 2-foot culvert just above his house that goes under Route 32. That's probably the same vintage as this one.
that's,
That's the small one.
yeah,
Like this big, right?
typically,
That
those-
culvert makes it
yeah,
really wet just above your house.
Yeah,
yeah, typically those would, when they do a corridor type project would be when they address those, but when we're down there, we certainly take a look at it. It's north of Paul's Way, but that's.
Yeah.
Up from there, okay. One thing on the local detour, there is grants available for that, right? For,
yes, so we can do the bypass mitigation. Well, so the bypass mitigation grant is typically for maintaining the detour during construction.
okay,
So if there needs to be like chloride loads paved, so there would have to be chloride or like enforcement.
yeah,
But because we're doing all the enforcement, I don't know if that's available or not, but it's something you can look into.
yeah, I'll look into it. I mean, because if the town allows us to use that, it's certainly gonna save the state a lot of money, so I think. Talk to their program manager, and I think there's something we can do there if the town's open to allowing that, signing or, otherwise, you know, like you said, we could spend a lot of money and sign a 70-mile-an-hour detour. that
Yeah.
nobody will
Doesn't really
use.
make any sense.
Everybody will use the other one, but I think, you know, we can certainly, it's pretty short duration, but I'm sure we can come up with something to account for the additional wear and tear.
Yeah, the only comment would just be that any kind of trucks that are gonna try to use that local detour are gonna, potentially struggle with the Church Street portion.
Yeah, we-
Straight down Dorset West
Yeah,
the whole way.
they'll just go the whole way down.
Yeah, and we can,
Which
I
is-
mean, we can have the uniform traffic officer just station, you know, for the weekend. I mean, we can put up 100 signs and they'll still show up.
Yeah, I mean, I
It's like,
think
it's. yeah.
such a short duration, it's
Yeah,
probably
but yeah, I think
not a big deal.
we can plan to just include enough hours to have, DPOs out there. To, stop trucks if that's. If they're not following the signs.
So we'll check on this link, but this presentation will be posted to this link in all future plan submissions, conceptual plans, final plans, any future presentations will be put up on this link, so you can kind of follow the project.
one thing that I just thought of is, you would know. Driving truck. Like, to make the turn, if you're going down Church Street and then onto Route 30, if you just had people go straight all the way down West Road.
Yeah.
That intersection's a lot easier to get a right-hand turn, but if you're going
Right.
back,
Trucks would struggle to get onto Church Street from West Road.
yeah, you wanna keep going on West Road for another 3 miles?
Go all the way.
It connects with 30.
You're talking about this turn right here?
No, the other one.
Yep.
That one right
Yeah,
there.
go straight,
Yeah,
so
there's
don't
a-
go on Church Street.
There's an island in the middle of that. You wouldn't make it through there. The tractor trailer, you'd have to go all the way straight down through to get,
Yeah, go another 2 miles down.
Yeah, 2.5 miles down.
And then
back
it
down to
connects with
30.
Route 30
Yeah,
at the
okay.
southern end and has a much more shallow turn.
Okay,
So the only one that would do that is if they're trying to get between, Church Street and
Just local.
Paul's Way, which would be local, but
People use that as a bypass all the time anyway.
Commuters.
Yeah.
Commuters.
but whenever there's an accident on 30, they'll divert
Oh, yeah.
that way. So,
But the speed limit's down now, so it's lesser.
oh
traffic.
yeah, that's working really well, Johnny.
Well, a little bit.
people are set in their ways.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Any other questions, comments?
Anything from you guys?
I guess, I don't know, the only, when I was talking to Milton is just the water on his side, because that water has to come through. And I dealt with it and I just put it into the field. So it doesn't bother me, but it's a problem if it stays on his side.
Yeah, that, and we weren't aware of that. I mean, I thought it was just the 15 or 18
Storm.
inch pipe that's coming into it, but we have on another project that I was involved in, we had a big slope failure and we put these round structures in that actually were perforated. So they had holes in them and I think we like wrapped fabric around them. So I think that's sort of what came to mind to me at first is like a way to just let water, the groundwater into the structure. I don't know how it sounds like there's like some under drain tied into it now where, we would be,
I'm pretty sure they put drainage tile in, they go back toward the culvert that goes under Paul's Way.
okay,
I think they put drainage tile into that and they ran it into, that's got those big concrete like well tiles
okay,
that they use with the cap and the grate on top of it.
yeah,
That's what's in the other end of that
okay.
net, as I recall.
Yeah, we'll have to give that some thought, but I think, yeah, accommodating the groundwater or somehow. If we
There's a
could-
lot of water from the springs that, well, right now it's really wet over there, 'cause it's not going, but, yeah, it ultimately, sooner or later it goes.
Yeah,
It's just a matter of it leaches down through the ground and gets down, and it ushers it through, or if it gets into that big tile.
So when you dig this out, you're gonna go a little bit further on either side. So you figure on Milton's side, right now it's just going right into the pipe. You dig that up, the pipe that goes to his spring, you're gonna have to make sure you connect that.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the water, like, this is where it goes.
Mhm.
So I don't know,
so is there a larger culvert that goes to your spring or is it just
Pipe,
like?
right?
like
No,
100
no,
feet?
there's nothing between the spring and the culvert, it just kind of makes its way through the ground.
Okay,
But there's, on the other end of that, that goes toward the culvert, that goes under Paul's Way.
yeah,
As I recall, they put drainage tile in it. There might be some drainage tile on this other side too.
okay,
Actually, there's gotta be, there's a lot of water. Because the springs are full right up to ground level, so it runs,
yeah.
it just, there's a lot of water.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, if it's like small, little corrugated pipe, that's probably just gonna get destroyed when it's excavated, so that's why I was thinking, I mean, we could potentially do something with like a perforated type structure where there's crushed stone around it or something that just lets that, whether there's, range tile or whatever, that sort of dead ends there, that just lets the water make it into the structure instead of just sealing it.
So would I be able to, at the same time you do this, put in something to maybe get the water from my overflow, so it's not making its way through the ground directly into that?
Yeah, it's something we can talk about. I mean, I haven't dealt with that before, but I imagine, yeah, I don't,
we just have to make sure you don't create a swamp on that side of the road,
Right.
yeah.
right?
Well, on your side,
Because if there's stuff going underneath, because it all's supposed to go north.
yeah,
Underneath Paul's Way.
Yeah.
That, when that got put in, that's kind of what blocks it.
Do you guys want to update any of the pipes that are now going under the road?
Oh, to the barn.
I was
I mean,
thinking
that
that,
barn.
you guys are using it right now, and I don't know if any of the pipes are kind of getting old or might, might want to replace them.
The one that goes to the barn, that's the one that's a concern.
That's all plastic at least. And then, I think it's only galvanized that goes under the road.
Just since it's gonna be dug up.
Yeah,
and
oh, absolutely, that'll be the time to do it.
If it's in that work area.
Is that where the pipe is that goes to the barn?
Yep.
It's next to the.
It's right on the south side, if you're looking at the end of it, it's right on the south side,
Oh, really?
just under the cattle pass on, it's not very far down either.
Really?
It's wonder it hasn't grown, because it runs all the time.
It runs all the time, right?
And
So-
because we used to use, I mean, all the cows and stuff, we use so much water that it never had a chance to sit at all, but
Right.
it's not down very far. So, yeah, we probably want to change your water lines sometime.
So whatever, you dig it up and then you find my pipe and then.
What do you-
just
what do
give
you
you
say
another
you're
pipe
doing?
and say, put this in?
There's the water line that goes
From
from the springs to the barn.
yeah, we'll have to find out where that is, so.
Okay,
So,
I can show you where it is,
Okay.
but it's,
so did you say it's under the cattle pass?
It's-
Or-
you know, it's round, so it's at the bottom,
Okay,
bottom side, and it's not underneath it, but it's at the bottom side of it.
okay.
And it's not down very far.
Yeah, I think I'll get your contact information and I'll come out with my designer and, we'll figure out time that works. in a month or So, next few weeks or whatever. And I think we could just walk around with stuff and make sure we address, everything. So, but that'd be super helpful to have you guys. If you could point these out to us, then we can take it into, we can only see what we can see. So, didn't know that a lot of this other stuff existed, but I'm sure there's ways to make it work. So, and if we need to get somebody out there to locate stuff, we'll do that. For, there's some question where the pipes go or if we're gonna be close to them. We'll deal with that. We build underground utilities all the time, so.
All you gotta dug up, time to change that section.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it's plastic from the spring to Route 30, I think, and from where it comes out under Route 30 to the barn is plastic. I think it's galvanized.
Okay. Yep.
Well, thank you very much. You guys
Thank you for
all
having me.
Thank you.
have what you need and then, yeah.
Yeah,
All
it's
sounds good.
very productive.
Worked out, yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. It's the whole point,
It's
right?
good you guys came.
I know. We thought we weren't gonna have anyone here.
All right, well, thank you.
Want me to give you my contact information?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Is Frank calling?
Text
or
you
no?
or just write?
Not yet. He said it-
I thought I heard a voice before. didn't I?
I think it might have been Gina.
Oh, okay.
But we do have a quorum anyway.
Yeah, we've got a quorum, so we're fine.
Liz, where are you?
I'm in my home.
Okay.
Happens to, this is very interesting what I just heard since I'm right in the mix.
Right, exactly. Okay, so Rob, the grand list extension form. which I-
Okay, so, Margot has recommended that we did this last year too.
Yeah, I
There's
remember.
always some kind of like housekeeping stuff at the end of the
Okay.
assessing year, and it's just safe to just extend the
so-
deadline
Yep.
when it has to be submitted.
So why don't I make a motion that as per the request, we extend by 30 days. The date for presenting the grand list.
Okay, Liz, can I get a second?
I will second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, and I just put this
Needs
in
one
here.
signature, but-
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll send you the. That one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. It worked before.
What's the date?
5/21.
Okay. All right, and is it only Meadowy Mint?
Yes, you can read my chicken scratch. On
Okay.
the page there,
So-
second
We have
class.
to convene the meeting. or-
Yes, we need a motion to convene the Liquor Board Authority.
I will make a motion to convene the liquor board authority.
Liz, will you second that?
I will second that.
Okay, we are now the Liquor Board Authority. And can we have a motion to approve the liquor license for Meadowy Mint, second class? Do we need to specify second class?
Yep, just second class.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Liz,
I
will
will
you?
happily, I will second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. Was there anybody else?
Nope, just that one.
Okay, so now I'll have a motion to reconvene the select board.
Motion to reconvene the select board meeting.
Okay, and I hear a second from Liz.
Second is beaming into you from Route 30.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. We are now the
Aye.
select board. All right, so the ARPA resolution,
So,
and I'm assuming, did this come from
this came
Vermont
from,
League?
yeah, it did.
From where?
The League of
The League-
Citizen Towns, Katie Buckley at the League.
So
of
this is
Citizen Towns.
essentially our saying we're taking the 10 million.
Correct. Yeah, the allotment. and we're
Which
taking it-
we lost at least that much in revenue.
And, yeah, and it's just, it meets the treasury rules and then, basically takes the, allotment off the timetable
Okay.
for discussion with the treasury. So we're basically saying we've taken it in, we've used it, it's done. So now that's done, so.
Okay.
So we don't.
How
still
we,
still
how
have
we,
the sign.
how we hold it and spend it as surplus money of our own money is our own tracking, and we do all that ourselves. But by doing this, when we do this and
This
then
is
go
saying
to
it's
purchase
it's
stuff with it,
payable.
The feds are done with us.
correct.
Right, like we
Yeah.
don't have to show, oh,
We
we
don't-
have to have by this
Well, I
date.
will
It's-
definitely make a motion
Stuff
that
like the
we,
purchasing,
Yeah.
purchasing requirements, stuff like that. all
I
go
will
away.
make a motion that we adopt or sign the resolution as presented with respect to the ARPA funds.
Do I hear a second?
For a second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You have to sign this one too. So this is something we all have to sign this, so you'll just have to swing by.
Yeah, we'll track people down or I'll bring it to the
Okay.
next. Let people sign it.
After the weekend, I'll be good.
Okay, reappointing the town forest fire warden. So we've got the form here.
So Doug Beebe is the current warden, and we would just be continuing his service. He's willing to do it.
Okay,
What is that job anyway?
So they more or less are in charge of, like burn permits and stuff like that. So we actually have the fire chiefs kind of regulate or give the burn permits, but ultimately the forest fire warden is like in charge of that. And he ends up being a conduit to the state.
Okay. So I'll
perfect.
make a motion to reappoint Doug Beebe as the forest fire warden for the town of Dorset.
I think it's signed.
Oh, approved down here, maybe. Let me look.
Okay.
Okay, so I heard a motion.
Yep.
Do I hear a second?
Second, yep.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of right at the. I can't tell what line I'm supposed to sign on, but I'm gonna just do it here.
Looks like
What do
we've
you
got
think, Rob?
multiple
It
on.
looks like it
There's like
got
5.
cut off. I can't tell.
I think you sign above.
Warden select.
Oh,
board.
yeah, it's
And
your
then-
your line is on the.
Are
previous
these
page.
all-
Line is on the previous page.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So I think you're fine.
So that's
Okay.
where your line
Okay,
for
You'd be the first one.
chair.
okay, all right, so I'm gonna sign this one. And then we'll all sign on the little spots. Okay. All right. And then the housing, is there much to report on the housing committee?
Liz, you can correct me if I'm wrong with anything. Not a ton. I think we continue to meet right now. A lot of stuff is kind of in a bit of a holding pattern until we get the kind of feasibility study for the unit capacity
Right.
for Raptor Lane. That's kind of
Right.
really we keep talking about lots of other things, but then it kind of comes back to, well, we don't have
You don't know how
that
many.
bit of information yet. So once we have that, then that kind of unlocks or continues a lot of other discussions. The good news is I think what we do need to do is we do need to add or have, I think, some consensus of the board to add Greg Boshart to the committee. Greg is Dorset resident, architect, and he's willing to serve and help on the committee.
Okay.
And it seemed like a pretty good natural fit. So we
Is
talked about,
is the committee decided?
yes.
And do we have to approve?
We are unanimous and it doesn't change the initial kind of concept because remember we had Seth Dunn who then had to peel off for business reasons. So Greg would effectively be kind of, filling that 9th spot.
So I could make a motion that
But there was one other thing, Rob, did we also want to talk about extending the work through the end of the calendar year?
Yeah.
We don't necessarily need to do that tonight, but we also wanted to just bring up to the board
Yeah,
that
I think for tonight,
when to work.
appointing Greg to the ad hoc committee and then what Liz said, just bringing up the fact that it's like, it's been, I
Coming up
think,
to 3 months.
yeah, I think it's been extended once and now it's likely that once the study's done, that it'll make sense to extend it another 4 months or something like that to the end of the year.
Our second request to the board had been, I think, through the end of the month of May.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I'll-
you were
I'll
making a
make
motion.
Motion for the select board to appoint Greg Boshart to the housing committee.
And do I hear a second? Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, and then we will wait until the next meeting to extend it, or do we need to extend it a month? If it's just until the end of May, then maybe we need to extend it now.
I think you could, yeah, if you want to be formal, be good.
Okay, I'll make a motion to extend the period in which the housing committee will be working until the end of the calendar year.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Absolutely. And second,
All in favor, say aye.
I now I
Okay.
did notice that Bill Colvin recently gave all the stuff that BCRC is doing, and one of the things he highlighted was actually Dorset housing report.
Hmm.
But did we get the final of that? We did get the final.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Okay,
It's on the website.
It's on the
I
website?
can email it around again.
yeah, that's fine.
We got it,
Mm.
few months ago.
yeah.
So I'm thinking,
maybe?
did we send an email out to all, to your email list saying, "Gee, by the way, maybe you want to take a look." Might be interesting.
Yeah.
Some newsletter.
So that was a really good report.
Mhm. Okay, so old business, new business. Work is starting next week, is that true, on the new town office?
If they tell me,
That is very exciting.
yeah.
I want to hear just briefly, how was the ribbon cutting
Oh, yeah.
last Wednesday?
Very nice.
It was
It was.
rainy and
It wasn't the best
Low-key.
weather, but
And
I'm
we-
guessing we had maybe
Means good luck.
20
We
people.
didn't have a shovel there,
yeah,
so we
Tanner
couldn't.
Rose is.
Okay.
He definitely won't get by without that.
But there was, some people from,
There's a lot of people that are vested in community members. and-
yeah, who was there? Some planning
Oh,
commission people?
there's-
or-
The GNAT Andrew McKeever did a
Yeah.
little piece that
Yeah.
came out
Oh,
on
did
it.
he?
Yeah,
Was there, I meant to look, was there something in the printed paper or online, was there an article? No,
No.
okay, that's too.
no, but GNAT, Andrew had a little piece that I watched the first 10 seconds of, and then.
Yeah, the journal did
distracted.
they did run the press release. The journal just printed it kind of word for word. So
Okay.
with the announcement of what it
Okay.
was. So, yeah.
Okay,
It was good, Liz.
Great.
It was, really nice that Cindy brought, goodies and all to,
Coffee.
Yeah.
and-
very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
with a little
Yeah.
tent out there.
So yeah, I mean, I'll have, the first thing they're basically gonna do is, the site construction contractor is gonna get on site. Stuff will get marked out and then they have to start to excavate, to uncover ledge to see what the ledge looks like and how involved it's gonna be in terms of the removal of the ledge. So that's kind of the first real step.
Okay.
And that'll likely take probably a couple weeks to kind of work through
Okay.
before I have maybe some information back from that process. So,
Right,
but yeah, I think it's exciting. I think, like we said, kind of at the meeting, Naylor and Breen worked really hard to get the bid pricing in line with an estimate from basically a year before that, which
Right.
is like, we were kind of skeptical it would happen, so, but they did. So we're lucky to be working with them.
yeah.
Reed Farm Lane, trying to think about anything new there is some new stuff here, so. The Act 250 coordinator tells me that we need to get an Act 250 permit to tear the building down once we own it. Our attorney actually
Okay.
says we probably don't, but it's a permit amendment. So, which doesn't seem like much, but when I like started to go through I've got a
get
7-page
approval.
document.
You have to get an approval to turn
Yeah,
a building into a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes
Because
no
it's-
sense.
It has a pre-existing permit on it. I think that's their rationale. When I.
You sort of have to
when you
wrap up
ask-
the permit or
When we
something.
purchase it and it becomes ours, it's municipal on less than 10 acres, so it shouldn't be jurisdictional, but I think because it had a previous permit, it makes it cleaner for them to have an amendment, and here's the end of the,
Okay.
because the town's gonna own it in perpetuity and there can't ever be any development,
Yep,
so there wouldn't be any future permits or anything, I don't think, but, it's just one of those things that you don't think about until you start to get into this process, so it's, there's more to it than just simply tearing a building down, so we gotta do that, there's vendors that we
they
have
have
to
to
get
check
through.
for bats.
Vermont.
Did you hear this? They have to check for bats.
Yeah, it's a condition. So before before the construction contractor can take the building down, we have to have someone come down and give
Bat review.
write a letter or give me an email or something that says that. And it's in the state documents and I think it's in the FEMA documents. So when FEMA closes this all out, they're gonna say, where's that? Where's this? Where's that? And that's one of the things that's gotta be in there. So
Okay. Is all of this gonna cost us more or just your time,
it's just
basically?
my time, really.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it's anything substantial. I think the one question I have is, can we, I think the demolition funding estimate was like 58,000. And are we gonna be able to get a vendor to come in that price range?
Mhm.
And the state seemed to be basically pretty supportive of, hey, if not, then we can amend the grant agreement to add a little bit if it's an extra 10 or $15,000 to actually do it. But we'll see where we end up. I mean, it's so, in theory, the August 15th is the closing date. And then, we'd have 90 days from then to tear the building down. The Brookside Drive grant application, we had a couple meetings on that, which were pretty promising. FEMA actually, they've changed some of their software metrics and they think that, if we have documentation of all the days that the road was overtopped and access was restricted,
Yeah.
that if it, we basically communicated like, hey, that happens 6 to 10 times a year probably. And they think that it'll pass what's called their BCA test, with that information now. So we have a contract with the engineer to produce this information, for that, so we could reapply essentially. And that'll include kind of, updating numbers on the construction of moving the road and stuff like that. So that could be a potentially good thing. It may take a while for it to go through its actual grant process and
Yeah.
all that, but for the people that live on Brookside, it could be a good sign. Route 30, Route 7 traffic stuff, there's really not much to talk about there. Upper Hollow Lot, we have a meeting actually tomorrow with the zoning administrator about, kind of driveway access. So the lot hurt, you can design a septic for it, and the next step is to see how we can get a driveway in there that meets the, bylaw, because it's kind of steep.
Yeah,
there are-
it's steep.
There are.
It's also a narrow lot, so it would,
Correct, yeah.
you'd be,
Yeah, it's gotta be able to meet a, kind of a rise and run type thing where it's gotta maintain a certain average grade. So if we can potentially sketch something out that does that, then we can, get a permit for the driveway. Which would then kind of bring it full circle to, okay, it's a buildable lot, and then we can, market it as such.
right, and if we can't, if there's no way to get a driveway on there, then
Then we'll have
we
to
know that.
have that discussion about what you wanna do with it then.
Okay.
The Route 30 path, we had a site visit meeting to go look at the connector area between Squires and Kelleher.
Mhm.
And that was, kind of at the request of the Bike Manchester group, which is the group that was responsible for the rail trail. The idea is to try to put some signage up on both roads and then, do some minor improvements on the connector. Nothing in the way of what was kind of recommended in the big study, which was, I would say a top end kind of version of what it might look like.
Mhm.
So we'll see where that goes. I think it's interesting because there's, there's no vehicular traffic between the two roads. But there's a footpath, and we actually, when we were at the site visit, there was some, I wouldn't say like adjacent property owners, but people that lived on Route 30 that just happened to be kind of walking a loop. They were walking on that section of trail that we were looking at. Which I
And
thought
this
was
is
kind of
all the
interesting.
way at the end of Kelleher, like where the citrons are?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. Right there where it meets on the downhill side, Squires Road is
Mm-hmm.
down below that. So their idea is to try to connect it for foot and bicycle traffic.
Mhm.
And add some signage, so.
Okay.
We'll see kind of where that goes. And that whole idea goes way back to when the rail trail idea was first generated, which was like in the late 90s. And the idea was to connect Dorset School to the rec park and
Right.
MEMS. So. New business. So the local emergency management plan
Oh, right.
needs to get
Yep.
readopted.
Oh.
There are no changes to it other than I think the adding
Fire.
John Niles' info.
I will make a motion to have us execute the annual local emergency management plan for the year. And have the select board chair sign it.
Can I have a second on that? Okay, perfect. I'll say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and just that one spot, right? Ron?
Yep, just one spot.
Yeah, the fire tax contract.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
So make a motion again. Make a motion to have us execute the fire protection agreement between the town of Dorset and the East Dorset and Dorset fire districts for the period through 2027.
Seven. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Dorset signed their copy. They've signed, actually, I think.
East
that
Dorset
copy.
has already signed.
Dorset has, East Dorset it's not. They meet later this week, I think.
Oh, okay.
And finance, tax, delinquent tax stuff is there. This is the year over year is pretty similar, so no real surprises there. One thing of note is that there's a piece of legislation that was passed and signed, I think last week, that changed some of the parameters. It actually was really bad when it was first generated.
What did it initially try to do?
Oh, it reduced the penalty to very little. It had a minimum delinquency size of like $15,000 or $20,000 that somebody had to have to be able to, to go to tax sale.
Mhm.
So it really was to like taking the teeth completely out of the tax sale process. Our Kevin actually was one of the testimonials, I think, that the league brought in, because Kevin does a lot of tax sales. He's very versed on the statutes and, and actually has done some kind of tax sale workshops through the league for towns. And so he did the best he could to say, this is just you don't need to do this. This is like, there's not a broken system.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with it. But they didn't listen.
But
completely.
people were worried that
Yeah, the
poor
big-
people
big
are
bad-
being taken care of.
The big
taken
bad
advantage of.
towns are just taking stuff away from people, which is just totally untrue.
As opposed to people
You know.
not paying their
Civic.
fair share of taxes that they're legally
Yeah, so
required to pay.
Ultimately, the town has to pay the school and the state, and that's 85% of what we collect is
Yeah.
that.
Right.
So, we have to front that money, so yeah, that's why the
But
penalty is
also-
there, that's why
It's still amazing to me that
kind of the
people,
principal moral part of it, like,
some
it's-
people
it's
who
what
leave it
keeps society
outstanding.
together.
Right,
It's really expensive to leave that.
Oh, yeah,
outstanding.
so and that's part of the, that was kind of part of the discussion, the 8% penalty and then the interest when it compounds and it
It's
runs.
the only way to get people to pay.
Correct, yeah,
exactly
Yep.
right.
yep, and the tax sale process allows the town to jump in front of, other liens. Which kind of puts
Yeah.
the banks on notice. So the banks nowadays, the odds of actually getting to a tax sale in most cases, I mean, it's very slim. The banks,
If there's a bank,
if
there's
there's
a
any bank
mortgage on it,
involved at
then
all,
they're
the
gonna.
bank is gonna figure it out and make it right and then force an escrow and the town doesn't really have to worry about it again. And in other cases, they've kind of changed some of the parameters. So it's just now basically somebody has to be a full year past the delinquency date to be collectible. So if you have 2 years, we can collect on the most recent year.
That's ridiculous.
But if you only have 1 year, like if these folks that just didn't pay in March because they only have 1 year, we can't take them to a tax sale until
Course, we're
April-
usually not going to
April of
do that
25.
quickly.
No. I mean, what happens though typically is we have a process where we send out statements, like 1 or 2 statements. And then we send out a letter that says, hey, here's your statement. Please reach out for a payment plan so we can get kind of this figured out. And everybody gets that letter. And then some do, some don't. And then the next step is typically by early summer, the attorney sends out a similar letter that just says, hey, the town manager gave me this information and now I'm sending out a letter that says, that I'm involved now and, the tax sale is a potential thing. Typically, most of the kind of frequent flyers, they get to that point and that's where it stops. And that usually,
But do we still have one person who's been in,
Yeah,
yeah, there's some that are
there's one big one I
4 or
remember
5
that's been
years.
forever.
yeah, because they just pay whatever the,
They kind of get caught up and then get behind again,
Mm.
basically. So they never really get fully
they
caught
do
up.
just enough.
But they
Like-
also pay us an extra 8% every year
Yeah,
that we keep for the burden of having to front the money that they didn't pay, basically. So it's definitely, there'll be some differences with some of the processes and how we do it.
plus, I mean.
Whether or not that
the
leads
rate
to
of
more
interest-
delinquencies, I don't know.
The rate of interest is what is the rate that we,
Charge?
Yeah.
So it's 1%.
statutory
Yep, it's 1% the first 3 months and then 1.5% after that
per month?
per month. Yep, and the 8% is
So
on
12 and goes up to 18% plus
Yeah.
the 8%.
the 8% is on
That's
the
getting to be,
delinquent balance.
just
Oh, yeah, it's like,
card debt.
it's like 24% a year if you don't, if you just
You don't do
ignore it.
anything, yeah.
Yeah, if you just ignore it, so it's not smart. Anyway, so that was gonna be way worse, actually, so. That, they pulled it back, but that doesn't mean they might not go at it again, in future sessions, I don't know.
They were doing some very
It's
strange
kinda like
things
the-
out there this year.
It's kind of
Really
like
strange things.
the just cause eviction stuff, it's kind of the same players in the arguments there, like Vermont Legal Aid and people like that. As far as the town's budget is concerned in the fiscal year, we are about 90% of the way through the year. When you look at the general fund, it shows 96% expended. There's a bunch of stuff that are like one-time expenses related to like town office work, like some of the engineering and architecture work around that, which will get paid back reimbursed out of the bond once we get to that point. And there's also some grant related expense too. So that's one of the reasons that we're 96 at 90. I think if you back that stuff out, it's probably like 88.
Yep.
A little bit under.
But what do you?
So we have
Could you
revenues.
project year end or?
Yeah, well, when you include the revenues for that side, because there's grants that match the expense, it's gonna be pretty close to even, I
Even,
think.
yeah.
And that's pretty normal. We don't have a ton of extra stuff built in here. Trying to think if there's anything else to.
Okay, is there, make a motion to approve the town manager's finance report?
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, get right into the rest of it. Fuller Sand and Gravel is won the paving bid. We bid out only Morse Hill Road at this point. We bid it out two ways, the full route and then also about half of it. So if we get a paving grant, we'll do the whole thing. If we don't, we're probably gonna do about half of it. We haven't heard back from Long Trail School about paving Paul's Way. So I'm assuming maybe there's a budget constraint that they're, feeling.
I wouldn't be
they're-
surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it's about $90,000. And the discussion was that they were gonna pay it in full, so, I mean, that's not a small,
It's
Right.
it's not a small amount. So we'll see, I'm waiting kind of for them to get me some information. So we'll see where that goes. The guys are just kind of now doing summertime stuff,
Mhm.
graveling roads and whatnot, so we do have, I don't know that emergency is the right word, but, we hopefully the water project is gonna advance enough that the paving in the village that we didn't get to last fall. It's probably gonna get done, this summer, which is good. There's a culvert on Dorset Hollow Road that, is just, that we're gonna have to replace it in the next couple of weeks. It doesn't.
Where
really-
is it on the hollow?
Just before Escher's,
It should cost less than $480,000.
a lot less. You pay for the labor and the equipment already, so that's there. My guess is it'll cost about, I don't know, $15,000 in materials probably. It's a culvert that doesn't take, it's just storm water.
Yeah.
There's no water in it, but it's literally breaking apart, so. So that'll get done and hopefully we'll be able to pave some of the village stuff. Maybe late summer. Cause they worked on Meadow and Cheney this week. They've gotten some pretty good progress on that, which is good. And then Kent Hill and Dorset Hollow are the others that they need to,
Okay.
once they get those buttoned up, then we'll be able to come in and have the paving company just kind of, make it all right. Which will be good.
Okay.
Just wondering, going back to the other bridge thing, it's 26 and all, but
Mhm.
when they do something like that, they said they try to minimize the cut of the road, but how much of a problem is that when they take a chunk out and then,
The rest is all,
yeah,
Well, they wouldn't let us do that, what they're doing. That's the funny
Right.
part about it. It's like when
Huh.
we, I mean, they may, if we really whined and griped and groped, they may, that 50-foot section that they'd kind of shown.
Yeah.
That's probably, they might have let us do that, but typically when you say, we've got this project, we gotta cut the pavement. They then do that conversation about, if you remember, like, reducing the size.
here
of the
they wouldn't
widths.
let it, yeah.
If we reduce the shoulders, they basically said, hey, prove to us that it's not gonna impact the crown of the road, which we did. If you remember, MFK then
Yeah.
did the work and said, no, it's not gonna impact the crown. They said, okay, that's fine, but if you do that, you still have to repave,
the whole thing.
like a
Oh, yeah,
1/10 of a mile or something like that, which was, the work to reduce the
instead
shoulders
of
was
just
like
changing the lines,
$15,000 and then the paving was like 80. So
instead
that's
of changing the lines, just
Yeah.
Right.
repainting.
correct. Yeah. So they typically they like to do even a larger
But I was thinking, is
repave
that
than 50 feet. So
just
you
when
get
when they do that, it seems like it'd be hard to not end up
Have
having
it, yeah,
a
be,
place that
yeah,
could become a
cold-
problem.
cold
Yeah.
joint, yeah. Yeah, no, they grind it and they would do what's called keying it in, where they grind it on either end, and then they kind of pave into the curved,
Okay.
kind of key, like I don't know. It looks
So it
like
kinda
piano-
works.
It looks like piano keys.
Hmm.
So like the new pavement goes into
Oh, I
this thing
see.
like this.
Yep.
Okay.
so it
And
kind of
that's their
interlocks.
spec, so it definitely, they've got they're spending 480 on it, right? So
Right.
they've got the money to make it right. For the most part.
State's still paying 20% of that, it's-
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, some of this stuff, I don't know, I mean, they paved, it's been 3 or 4 years now since they paved, but I mean, you would have thought, I mean, that culvert had to be in a similar shape then.
Then, exactly.
It hasn't just magically gotten worse in 3 years. But it is what it is.
Yep.
Sometimes that stuff creeps up on you. The fire district, annual meeting was last week, went really good. Not a lot of turnout, but there's not a lot to really discuss. You know, it's hard to, projects that are this big are very dynamic. Just in the fact that there's just so much going on that it's sometimes hard to kind of take stock of it. So that it was a good time for them to kind of take stock of kind of where they are. Right now, there's essentially waiting on the service line project to kind of run its course. They've tried to add new services to the thing. The vendor is kind of talking about not wanting to do that. It doesn't mean it won't get done. It's just it may stretch the work out a little bit more. But at the end of the day, hopefully fairly soon, they're gonna know, probably by late summer, how much money the current project is gonna be under budget by.
Mhm.
And then we're basically waiting to get that number to then say, okay, we're gonna try to,
Do some extra stuff.
yeah, do some extra
I'm
work.
just curious, are
So,
we still operating the system ourselves, or do we have outside people operating it essentially?
we have a hired, Simon Operation Services.
Simon,
that
yep.
That does all the operations. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're great.
Yeah,
It is a bit expensive, but not when you consider, you know, if you had an employee doing it.
Right,
It's
exactly.
Something cheaper than that. But yeah, no, they do a great job. So that'll be, you know, who knows where that'll go as far as the phase two, like Route 30, Church Street, there's a lot of stuff talked about, so it's gonna be some kind of mainline construction work,
Mhm.
which is needed, so, and again, it's 0% interest, it's got subsidy and all this other stuff, so it's just, we're getting more done for the
Right.
money that, we said we were gonna use to do the services, so
Mhm.
that's good. Let's see, there's stuff to kind of talk about housing. So the short-term rental, ordinance, the appeal period ends Thursday. So there'll be
Okay.
a lot more to talk about at the next meeting in terms of, we'll have some numbers on what we think the numbers are, and who letters to and all that stuff.
Okay.
And in theory, the form too. So hopefully that'll start to.
Just curious, I don't mean to keep pushing on you, but I was
Mhm.
wondering if you checked out that outfit that'll. I just, you know, a lot of this stuff, I figure we
I
got some
spent a
revenue
little
coming
bit
in.
of time, but not
We
a,
could get somebody else to do most of the work
Not a ton,
and,
yeah.
you know, of updating who's
yeah.
who's relevant
So
and
I
stuff
know,
like that.
I don't know if it's a similar vendor than what Killington uses, but I know Michael in Killington, I can see if he can just give me their info and. you
Yeah,
know,
just
give him a call.
thinking
Yeah,
when, you know,
so
if
how
we
it's
could,
going.
because we put so many things on you and
Mhm.
the, you know,
Mhm.
town staff.
No,
to
I mean, I
do.
think there's,
And something, and in a way,
if it's
if
not,
it could be a third party, they do the stuff online and all,
yeah.
and then they're not complaining to you and, you know,
Mhm.
coming up with issues and all that.
Mhm.
Makes it a little more arm's length.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I should definitely
Just
look at
to,
that.
you know, if it wouldn't be, make it easier, then don't do it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But if it could make life easier, I think it's worth considering spending the money.
Mhm.
Let's see, we talked about town office, we'll have to just start doing some of the mechanics around the money management around that, which is, you know, not a big deal, but just something to note. We had the kickoff meeting for the engineering review, that was really great, I think, it was probably about an hour and a half maybe. And, you know, the engineering firm comes with some good references, so.
What's a 35% design meeting?
So they're gonna go and they're gonna sit, you know, they're gonna figure out how many housing units can go in that, you know, in Raptor Lane. And then they're going to come up with a concept of what it might look like. And then they're gonna, when they get that about 35% done with that, they're gonna bring it to us. So that they don't
That
get,
makes sense.
yeah, if they get to
Okay,
further along and then they
Would
bring it
that
to
be
us and we
in
go, that's
different- would
crap,
that
we don't
be-
like that, and then.
different setups, like, it was just talking to Greg the other day about, you got the single family, and then she was talking about, in town, we've got something where, the garages are together, and then you've got, duplex sort of ideas or a little bit more.
Yeah.
Are they
so
gonna look
we-
at different
We
different
gave them a
ideas?
directive to try to have a diversity of units in their concept. So that's what they're gonna try to do, mixture of single, 2, 3, and maybe 4 and up.
It'd just be,
units.
nice to,
I think and the reality, so this is just like, hey, this is how many units could go in here,
Mhm.
like, here's the high end, and here's what a neighborhood might look like.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they're gonna give us, and then it's our job to then figure out, it gets. And that's Liz can attest, the housing group kind of it's easy to go in circles
Right.
because you have a lot of similar but almost competing interests.
Mhm.
In that you have certain types of subsidized housing, you have market rate housing,
Right.
you have workforce housing, you have rentals, you have this, you have that, you have this. So I think part of the goal probably for the housing group is to then try to winnow some of that down for the select board to say, okay, here's what we think, can work and can be done quickly and makes a lot of sense and maybe doesn't, give the town a lot of heartburn. Maybe it's not
Right.
involving the town money wise, maybe
but
it's.
it can be really tough, like with the school district, we've been on the middle school study thing.
Yeah.
And we had a special committee working on that and having all these meetings, and, we've got consultants and all this stuff. And finally, they came back and essentially, I wasn't sure what they were saying at first, but they said, it's so complicated and there's so many different iterations that we can't figure it out. You guys we're gonna have to kick it back to the board to kind of
To
get involved.
give
to
us more information.
Direction
Figure out
or
what
something.
directions
Yep.
Yeah,
we might wanna go.
It's too open-ended.
Exactly. You've got
Because
to
it's-
narrow it down.
And I
Yeah.
think that's part, and part of the
Which is hard to do
discussion-
without the idea of what everything's gonna cost and
Yeah.
what, if we do this,
And
then
who's
what
gonna,
are the facilities?
who's going to
and-
do it?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if
And I
they
think-
did do it, who, would we be selling?
What's
Would
your-
we
It's a
be
huge
charging?
revisiting.
What's your
Yeah.
time frame? What do you, I think what's difficult and what's gonna be important to try to, communicate is that it's gonna be difficult for one housing project in one area of town to meet the needs of what
Right.
everybody feel are the needs. Like, it's
Exactly.
just not gonna happen. I mean,
Right.
It's
No.
gonna be, you potentially could try to patch it all together and have
But
a lot of
every-
different partners and a lot
But
of different funding
almost
sources,
every
but-
town is talking about trying to do something.
Something, yeah, so I think that's
And-
I think my hope is that we can get this information. We can get a sense of like, okay, if there were X amount of market rate, you can talk to a developer, if there were X amount of market rate units. And the town, X amount of market rate, X amount of, kind of capped appreciation, workforce housing, maybe it's, I don't know, 2 to 1 or something like that, or 3 to 1 market rate to capped. And a town gives, does the infrastructure improvements, does the permitting and gives the land. Is that enough to incentivize a developer to just come in and do it? Versus having lots of nonprofit partners that have all these funding things that just, it could take years and years and years.
So you do end up having to, use every
maybe-
potential grant money from any place and all that crap. Often just to make it work, but
But I
that's
think
where I
that
think people like the,
it's Dorset and the land is valuable, and
Yeah.
if there's a free market solution, I think it's like, we need to look at.
Yeah,
See
yeah,
how
you're-
feasible that is, and if it's like.
Yep.
Do we sell it? Is there a way that it's, it could be marketed and we could sell it and then you could reinvest that money in.
Right.
The same thing, it's just, I think to me, we need to kind of learn that baseline.
we have more options, cause we also,
Yeah.
we got a lot of acres and we got
Yep.
a lot of,
Yeah, I think if we're willing,
Value
we
there.
have site control, it's already off the tax rolls. There's a lot of infrastructure improvements already there. I think the discussion at the housing and probably the town level is like, it's probably better for the town to permit it.
Yeah.
And then, find a partner that, where it makes the most sense.
We were talking about something, a meeting or two ago. Where, it was the path project where it was
Yep.
like, if you did it with the grants and all, it would probably be so much more expensive than,
Correct. And
but-
and time consuming and
Yeah.
all that stuff versus, I think if, a good.
Why it cost them $480,000 to
Exactly.
do.
If we didn't own this land, it would already have houses being built on it right now.
Right.
That's there's an adjacent subdivision that kind of during, and after COVID, went from having, I think, 8 lots that were kind of sitting there like waiting for development to happen, and they all sold in like a couple of years, and now there's 4 or 5 houses that have been gone in, and a very small, short time frame. So, and that it's likely that would have happened to this area too. So I think, we're fortunate that if there's some value there and the town can, speed up the process and get,
Yep.
new housing units
Great.
there and get them on the tax rolls, and that's probably a really good thing.
Cool.
I mean, can
Um,
we learn anything from what, Bill Jones was doing down in Manchester?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, part of it is to take our the study when we get it back from Raptor Lane and the engineer, and one of the next things is gonna be, okay, what do you want to permit? Do you wanna, and part of that's gonna be, what can a developer, what would incentivize the developer? What do we have to do? Do we have to, if somebody's gonna build something for, 600 and sell it for 700, okay, or whatever the number is, but if they're gonna build it for 6 and sell it for 2, like
Right.
that's where the link is
Exactly.
broken, and that's
Right.
where
Of course.
if we can ask them to do a little bit of that, but you can't, if you want them to build all units for 600 and sell them all for 2,
It
well,
won't
now
happen.
you've got to bring in
Right.
boatloads of money to do that. Versus if it was a portion of it, could we sell and then
Right.
subsidize the construction cost, and then
Yeah.
that allows that to be sold for 2, or, it's just a number, but that's
Mhm.
the kind of the idea, so. I think it's gonna be interesting, and I think we're lucky to have the asset, and I
Yeah.
think it could be a really good thing for the community. So, and that's all I got for
Okay.
manager stuff.
Okay, do we do this in public or do we do this?
The contract, it's up to you guys. I mean, I think it's the first look at it.
Right,
It doesn't have to be signed until next.
and I would
Does
say
this
we
have the
could go
terms
into,
that we had discussed earlier or no?
I think
No.
so.
which,
I'm trying to remember the last time we had a discussion on the terms of the contract.
yeah, there were some things that we had added in to the
Yeah.
last contract.
Okay, do we need
Like
to do
the
executive
things
session then?
like that.
So,
We need an executive session, and I think we need to have everybody here for
Yep.
that. So,
So, but not Jeanette, so we'll probably stop recording.
right,
So make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters.
have a second?
Second?
Okay,
And,
can we,
I don't know.
how do we do this?
Keegan.
Can we shut this down?
Well, probably if we just say that, once we come out of executive session, we'll go straight to adjournment. So
Okay,
maybe it could make most sense to cut off
Cut off the meeting.
here